We're going to be talking this week about a view of God and his relationship with the world that is commonly called open theism, or the open view of God. I prefer to call it the open view of the future because it's primarily about the nature of the future for reasons that we'll see throughout the course of this week. To begin to articulate what the open view of God or the open view of the future is about, I want to contrast it with what I call the blueprint view of God. It's not the traditional view of God throughout history, at least not since the 4th century with St. Augustine. The traditional view is the view that I would call the blueprint model of God's relationship to the world. I call it the blueprint model of God's providence because the fundamental conviction of the traditional or classical view of God and his relationship with the world holds that everything that happens in world history is directly or indirectly a working out of a blueprint that God has for world history. Ultimately, everything follows God's will. And the thinking is sort of like this. God's omnipotent, right? And God's all good, right? So, for everything that's going to happen, as God sees that it's going to happen, he either allows it or he prevents it. And if he allows it, it must be good that he allowed it. Nothing would happen, the thinking goes, unless God allowed it. And since he did allow it, it must be good that it happened. It must fit into a divine plan. And so everything in world history, whether good or evil, follows a divine plan. And in the traditional view, God either predestined this blueprint from the foundation of the world, or at least he foreknew the blueprint from the foundation of the world. So from the foundation of the world, everything that takes place was already settled. That's the traditional way of looking at the world. I'm going to offer this other way of looking at things, and I just offer it up for your consideration. I'm not here to cram this theology down anyone's throat. I'm happy if I serve as a catalyst to get you thinking about things, wrestling with the issue. My goal here is not to convince everyone of this, though I am convinced of this. My goal is to get you thinking about it, to taking it seriously. Some of you may accept it, some of you won't. But the goal here is to get you thinking about it. I have found, and many, many, many other people have found, that this view, embracing this view, makes a real difference in our lives. It's a view that puts a premium on our moral responsibility. It's a view that gives significance to our life because it says that the decisions that you make and the prayers that you pray really do affect what comes to pass. Things really do hang on what you do. It's a view that makes a virtue out of adventure and passion and even reasonable risk-taking. Because this view says that we have those things because we're made in the image of God. And God is an adventuresome God in this view. God is a wild God. He's an untamed God. He's a God who risks creating a world where there are free agents who can make decisions even against him. He's a God who risks creating a world where he may, and in fact did, experience tremendous pain as manifested most clearly on the cross of Calvary. I and others have found that by embracing this view, there is a sense of urgency, but also glorious responsibility and kind of a coming alive sense that happens with us as we realize that we're partners with God, and God wants to have his will accomplished on earth as it is in heaven, partly at least by means of us. Your life really counts. You are important to the kingdom. Things really do hang upon what you do. Things really are affected by every prayer you pray. Some people have found, I certainly have found, that this view really makes one's prayer life come alive. One of the reasons why many people struggle with prayer is because it feels like a pro forma activity to them. That is an activity where you're just going through the motions. I used to struggle with this a lot when I was a Calvinist. I used to wonder, why am I praying? Because it's all ordained already anyways. What really hangs in the balance on whether I pray or not? I used to think this way, if what I'm praying about is good, God already ordained it to come to pass. And if what I'm praying about is bad, or at least not what God ordained to pass, it's not going to come to pass anyways. So what difference does my prayer really make? Well, in the open view, the future is partly composed of possibilities that are resolved into actualities by our decisions, including our decision to pray or not. You see, so this view really puts a significant sense of moral responsibility to us, which freaks some people out because they're not used to being morally responsible, but as a matter of fact, as a personal agent, you are. But that very moral responsibility makes our life significant. You really matter to what God's up to in this world. In the open view, God knows all things. And I put that right at the start because there are many critics out there who say that open theists don't believe that God knows all things. They think that it entails that God is not omniscient, which means he knows all things. They think that because in the open view, God doesn't know all that's going to eventually come to pass. And since they believe that all that will eventually come to pass is already out there to be known, any view that says God doesn't know what's eventually going to come to pass must be denying that God knows everything. But in the open view, God does know everything without remainder. What is real and what God knows are coextensive categories. The difference is not about whether God knows everything or not. The difference between the open view and the classical view is not whether God knows all things. We all agree God knows all things. The difference is what is the everything or the all things that God knows. And the one distinctive of the open view is this, and write this one down. The open view holds that possibilities are real. Possibilities are real. And since God knows reality perfectly, he knows possibilities perfectly. But he knows them as possibilities. In the traditional view, all of history is one timeline. It's just one single line. And it's all exhaustively there to be known, so God knows it. And in the Calvinist view, God preordained it. In the open view, you can picture it as a line that begins to branch out in possibilities. That's what's real. God creates a world where the future is to some degree composed of possibilities, and precisely because God is all-knowing, he knows them as possibilities. The disagreement between open theism and the classical view is no different than this. In the open view, all things includes future possibilities. Some of reality is definite. It's definitely this way and definitely not that way. That's what I mean by the word definite. Some of reality is definite and perfectly known by God as such. Certainly the past is exhaustively definite. You can't unhappen something that happened. So it's definitely this way and definitely not that way. I was definitely born in Cleveland and not in Bismarck or Germany or Australia. Okay, so the past is definite. It's definitely this way and definitely not that way. So God, because he's omniscient, knows it to be definitely this way and definitely not that way. The future in the open view is to some degree definitely this way and definitely not that way, but to some degree it's possibly this way and possibly that way. It's indefinite. Some of reality is indefinite, possibly this and possibly that, and precisely because God is omniscient, he knows it as such. In the open view, God settles whatever he chooses ahead of time, and he opens up possibilities ahead of time to whatever extent he chooses. He's the sovereign God of history. He can preordain whatever he wants to preordain. He can presettle whatever he wants to presettle. And for that reason, he can foreknow whatever he wants to render foreknowable. To whatever degree he wants, he does that. But to whatever degree he wants, he leaves it open. To whatever degree he gives angels and human beings free will. Free will in the open view is the power to say this or that, to choose this or that. And before you choose this or that, what is real is that you might choose this and you might choose that. That's what God knows. To the extent that he gives us free will, to that degree, the future is composed of possibilities, not definite realities.